Hello, in this lecture we will take a deeper dive into the Blazor hosted, client hosted, whichever word you prefer, and we will do this little example. We will basically allow the program to create a product. We will have a product which will have basically a name, a description, and a value. We will upload it. We will use web forms, or rather form data, not web forms. We will use form data. We will use form data object to upload that to the server side, and we will insert that into the database, and then we will do the retrieval as well. So we will retrieve all the products that were inserted. Now we won't be doing the database insertion part. I will put that in as a already written code, but to begin with we need to delete some of the default stuff. We haven't done this before. We need to delete some of the default stuff because we simply will not need that. Okay, so let's start with the client and let's start with the pages. First of all, we do not need the counter. Obviously we don't, and let's delete that. Okay, and then we will delete fetch data. We can leave everything else, it doesn't really bother us. Nothing else will bother us. And then we need to go to the controllers. Let's delete this one. We don't need it. We don't need it at all. Then finally let's delete this weather forecast object. We do not need that as well. Now, since we have everything deleted, we can get to the more interesting part. And first of all, let's deal with the database insertions and retrievals and all that. So I'm just going to create a new class in the server, the class. Now for the class, it could be done in a class library, which you probably would want to keep it, but for simplicity purposes I'm gonna keep it right here, and I'm going to call it database manager, and we will only have a couple of static task methods. Okay, so we have it as public already, and I'm just gonna insert those two little methods, copy that and insert that here. So there's not much to see here. As you can see, we are missing a few things already. So we are missing the default SQL or SQL, whichever word you prefer again, importations, references, and all that. We are missing that. And also you might have noticed we will be using this product object, which will be in shared. It will go into the shared, and we will be using it on both server and client sides. Okay, so we have that, and we have our connections. So for the connections, if you're not familiar with that, we need to go to NuGet packages and insert something. It'll be system data and SQL client, just like that. Now if you're not familiar with SQL Server, you should learn it. It's a great technology. For the most part, it's actually somewhat free to use. So it, and you can watch the course on that as well. On the SQL Server, you'll learn all that you need and how to interact with it in C#. Now let's do quick load up, and we will do simple using statement, which will fix everything here. So let's do system data SQL client or SQL client, again, whichever word you prefer, it doesn't really matter at all. So here we basically have those three values, and they go into a table, and each value occupies different column. Okay, we have that, and then finally we have the retrieval, and the retrieval basically retrieves all those values from the table, and it creates a list of our product objects. So You see we are missing the product object, and let's do just that. Let's create it. So we are going to do that in shared. In shared we are going to do that. And we will need to create a simple class. So let's do just that. Let's click add. Let's click add and let's do class. Okay, just like that. Now product object. Product object we need. Add it. And we do need to make this public. We have to, otherwise it will not work. So let's do public string. Let's call it name. Get set, the usual. And let's actually copy this stuff. Copy it, paste it. And the last one will be an integer. Now, you might find it rather curious that we are storing the value, which is basically dollar amount of whatever currency you would be using, in integers. So this is in cents. Now, a lot of platforms use this model, especially credit cards. If you use credit cards for payments, they will likely use this system of cents rather than the full monetary amount in decimals. Okay, so let's just do description now. Description. Very important not to make complex of typos. So we have that object. Now let's see if we reference that, and we do. We reference that quite properly. We don't need the web application here because we do have a using, I believe, somewhere. Okay. We actually have, since this is shared through the web application namespace, so we don't need to include another namespace with using. Okay, so we have that all done and ready to go. It should work perfectly. Okay, so we can close that and get to the more interesting part. And in this case, we will start from the backend, from the server side, whichever word again, whichever term you prefer, doesn't matter at all. To controllers, add a new controller, item, new item, web controller class, and let's call it simply main controller. Okay, just like that. It doesn't matter at all what you're going to call it. We won't be using that kind of a route. You could obviously use that route which uses the controller name and then uses the action name, or just uses the HTTP method. There are many options. Okay, so now let's delete the default. And we will need to establish a little route. First of all, for the insertion, we will call that create product. We will create the product. And then we will be using obviously HTTP post for this one. HTTP post. Not get, not delete, but post. And then let's do action method as it is called. Public async, task we will be returning boolean, right, because we are inserting. We just want to check if it has been inserted or not. Okay, so let's call it create product, just that. That's it. That's almost it. We need to actually get the form object. So let's do it like that. Let's do from form. If you watch the previous lecture on API calls, you have noticed probably that if we are using JSON on the request, we would be using from body, because obviously we are not using a form, so you are getting that directly from the raw body. Okay, so we have now from form, and let's do the shared, and we have product object. Okay, we have the product object, and let's call it simply product. Okay, like that. Now let's do return await database manager, database manager and insert product, and now you might notice and you might think to yourself, why are we not just simply passing through the product? Well, the reason is quite simple. This class database manager, it probably should be in a class library, and we don't want to give access to this particular object. We don't want to give that access to the class library that holds this database manager class, and therefore this static task method. We don't want to do that, so we at this point we distribute everything through variables, through parameters right here. Okay, so let's do the product, and first of all name, and then let's do product and description, and then we do product and value. That's it. That's all you need to do, at least for now. Now let's do the next part, which is the retrieval, so we can actually copy the stuff. There's going to be less writing to do, and let's start from the top. It's going to be get products, let's do okay, and then this one's going to be get. It's important to have this as get, otherwise it won't work. We will be using a sort of a different way to actually retrieve this value than what you previously might have seen. Okay, so we don't need to pass any form through. Do that, and we do get. Now it doesn't matter at all what is the name for this. It makes absolutely no difference. You can just put in some random letters. What makes the difference is the actual route. So here we actually need the different task. So we need the get products, and that's it. We are getting all of them, so we aren't doing anything interesting here. We just need to change the return type to, let's say, dynamic. Why not? Dynamic is basically any type you want. We could obviously use this product object, but it will be quicker to write this. Okay, so we have the backend ready to go, it seems. Now we can get to the front end. So as you can see, it's going quite smoothly now. Get to the front end. And let's actually do all that in the index. In this case, it's going to be just index. We won't be dealing with navigation. That's not what this example is all about. Okay, so we have the index. And in the index, we will need to, first of all, inject a few things. So first of all, it's going to be inject web application shared. Let's see if that's going to work. Yes, product object, and let's call it PO. Now what happens here, you actually need to add a singleton, reference this thing. You need to reference in a startup for the client. So you go here and you need to do, let's see, configure services, right? Need to do that. Services, add singleton, and we'll just copy it from here, right? You need to add that, you need to reference that. You have to do this, otherwise it won't work and you won't even see a very sort of a clear error. You have to sort through a lot of garbage to get to that. This is very important to put it in the configure services, add singleton, type, and that's it. Okay, so we have that prepped and ready. Now let's do the HTTP client. Another injection. Let's do inject HTTP client, just like that, and let's call it again HTTP. That's it. Now for the UI, at least part of the UI, We'll get to the next part later. So what we're going to do, we'll actually try to split the page into two halves. Let's do one div like that, and then another div, okay, and let's do style, and let's just do width 50%. Let's do 50%, and float left. We need a float on this one. Again, it's just a sort of very basic design so that we wouldn't get a mess on our hands and we could see everything very clearly. Okay, so in the first one we will just have the input, the creation of the product, and in the second one we will have the retrieval. So now let's get to the functions. We will jump back to this later. Okay, so let's do add functions like that. And first of all, we need to declare the object for the output. Let's do web application. I believe I have that in clipboard. I don't, but I can copy this one just like that. I can paste it, and I'm gonna do a simple array on this one because we will be returning a lot of these, so obviously we need an array. I'm gonna call it product objects. Okay, as it is suggested. Some reason do that. And now we need another little string output that's going to be for the success or error message. Okay, so we have string output, that's it. And then we need two tasks, two synchronous methods. Okay, so let's do the first one, sync task, that we don't need a type. Let's call it create product. Now again, if you are using asynchronous, you should already be using a task and you should be awaiting it. You should be calling it from the button with a lambda expression, and you should be awaiting it. That's very important, otherwise you'll have some issues. Okay, so now let's stick with the create product. The get product will actually be very, very simple, but this one is a bit more difficult. So let's do that form data. Let's do variable form data equals new, and it's gonna be multi-part actually form data content. So this is very, very interesting, and look at what it can do. Okay, so let's do form data add and see what we can add. We can add HTTP content. So this is HTTP content, but we can add key value pairs. We can add key value pairs of another HTTP content here. Now in this case we will be using just a simple string, so there's nothing exciting here, but you could be uploading files, you could be uploading binary data, byte arrays and streams and all that. So it's a normal form. It's like any other form in JavaScript, right? So let's do that. And in this case, again, we will be using strings, so we need a string content. Let's do new string content. Let's try to find that. And we can, and we will. Okay, we have that. And the interesting part here is that the name of a key for that value is the second parameter, not the first. First of all, you put in that value and then the key. Okay, so that's going to be name. And I'm actually going to copy that. I shouldn't have put in the name. Need 3 of those, like that. Line them, and the second one is going to be description. Now we do have to match the object. Okay, so we have that, and then we are going to have the value, okay, just like that. And then finally we need to insert, so it's going to be PO PO, and then here it's going to be the name, PO name, and PO description. PO description. Now it's going to be PO and value. Finally the value. But remember, at this point you would have a decimal. So you probably want to multiply it by 100 to get those cents. You need to get the cents, right? And you need to convert that to string. Fortunately you do, you just can't do default. Okay, we have the string and we are ready to send it. Now we obviously need the request message to put this content in. Do HTTP request message. We could do a variable as well, we didn't have to write it. Okay, so let's do MSG, let's call it, equals new HTTP request message, just like that. And then let's do HTTP post, HTTP method, that's gonna be method. Okay, and that's gonna be post, in this case post, just like that. And then we need the route, which is create product. Okay, so it's gonna be create product, that's the route. Create with 3 E's, but create product. Okay, that's the route. We have a route. Now we can assign the content, right? The MSG content equals form data. That's it. You have a form data in, and again you can put in any kind of content into one of these form data values. So it's very important and very useful. Now finally we need to get the response. Variable response equals await HTTP send a sync, just like that, and MSG, the message. Okay, we have the message, and that's basically all we need to have, right? Just the message. And now we need a little output to see if it worked or not. Let's do output equals, so since this is a boolean response, we don't need to read the value, we don't need to read the body, nothing to read. It's either true or false, it either worked or not. Okay, now obviously you would want to do a little read, but we won't be doing that. I'm just going to show you a very useful feature of this. If you do response, and if you go to is success status code, you could obviously do a whole arrangement with status codes, but it's a lot easier to do is success status code. Just like that, you have the status code, and that's it. Okay, so now let's move on. Raise the question mark, raise the question, and then let's do simple upload successful, just like that, or failed, just like that. Again, you would want to do a little more checking on that one. Probably you would want to read the body, or you would simply change up the backend, and you would do it in a way that if it fails to insert, it doesn't respond with a status code. But I would only recommend using status codes for the sort of default issues, such as network issues and stuff like that. You shouldn't use for your program's errors, right? Let's leave it at that. It doesn't really matter much. And let's do the retrieval. So let's do a sync task, okay, do a sync task, and we don't need the type, let's do products just like that. And now let's simply assign that to the product objects rather, equals await. And you will see that this is very easy to do, and then you'll be asking the question, why shouldn't I just do this for the posting as well? So I will answer that, but first let's do this. Let's do HTTP get JSON async, and this is gonna be our type. A type is the list. Okay, we need to copy the list, the type, and just like that we will declare the route, which is, I do believe, get products, just like that. We have it all now ready. And again, you might be asking, why wouldn't you use this for the JSON post? But the answer is quite simple. It's very unstable at the moment. It's a bit difficult to get it working right when we retrieve the post value. And another thing is that you don't get any additional values with this one. You just get what you need to get. That's it. You won't get the headers. You won't get any of that. You won't get status codes. Nothing like that. Just get JSON and that's it. So if you need to deal with headers, that's not an option you would go for. Okay, so we have now everything set up except for the UI elements, the HTML elements. So let's do just that. First of all, let's deal with the basics and the creation. Let's do a couple of paragraphs just so we wouldn't make a mess. Do 3, 4. I believe 4. Okay, that's gonna be enough. And then I'm just gonna do input, just like that. And I'm gonna bind that right away. Bind at po.name. So you might have noticed that the IntelliSense here doesn't really work that well, and that's all fine. And you may also have noticed that we are binding it with this injected object, so you don't necessarily have to declare those bindings in the function. You can use them in all places you like. Okay, now let's do a text area for the description. That will be, so do another bind at po description. That's it, we are good to go. And now let's do a little, well, actually we need a value now, a value. So let's do an input index input, and then let's do bind at po, and then the value. See, it doesn't work well at all. Okay, we have the value, all those bindings we have. Now we just need a button which will actually create the stuff. So let's do submit like that, and let's do on click at. And again, remember, I said that we had to do the await, and we will do that. So let's do that. So lambda expression first. Let's do create product, just like that. Let's do here await, and here we need a sync, not a wait, and we have it ready to go. Just one last paragraph for the output. If it worked or not, we will see. And now we can move on to the retrieval of the objects. It's going to be quite simple, quite straightforward. And let's do paragraph first of all, and let's put in a button into that. Put in a button, and let's do show all, just like that. And then finally, let's do on click equals at, again, another little lambda expression we might have. Let's do async right away this time. Let's see which one of these methods is quicker. Await, and now I believe get product. Called get product for some reason, not products. But it doesn't really matter. Let's leave it at that. And let's move on. Let's move on to something a lot more interesting, and let's do a little if statement. If, like that. And also we need else. So this will basically check, if the product objects are not empty. If there are some, they will be displayed. If there are none will be displayed, and we will state that. The paragraph B, just like that. No results. No results. Okay, just like that. No results, no nothing. And now here, if we do have some, we actually need to check if we have some or not. Okay, so the product objects not equals to null. If there are some, we'll do a for loop. You could also do probably a for each loop. It doesn't really make much difference. Don't really see any. So let's do that. In this case, let's do product objects length, just like that. And now let's do a few divs just to hold this stuff together. Let's do div, sort of a parent div. Okay, let's do style. We can actually copy the style from here. We're just gonna do 100, not style in style, but style. Okay, we need 100 here. We can copy 3 of them. We need 3 of them. Okay, just like that. And let's change that to 30, 30, 30. Okay, 30 for each little column we have. And here we're just gonna do paragraph. Let's say name. And description we will put in. We'll put in a description just like that. And finally the value and the description. Start from the top. B. And we need at. As you can see, we had HTML here, we had C# here, but if you want to do more C#, you need to use the at keyword, at sign again, right? So we have that, and let's do simple product objects. We need the index, so that's going to be I, and then it's going to be name here. Okay, this one's going to be the name. You can actually copy this one. We'll just change a few things very quickly, very briefly. Don't need to spend too much time on this one. Description, and let's do the value. Okay, that's it. It should all work perfectly now. We will see if it works or not. We will launch that, and we will see if it actually functions properly. So that's what we are doing now. And we'll also put in a breakpoint. Just to see that in fact the whole form value was transmitted in the same way as you would have it transmitted through the JavaScript if you use JavaScript, form data and all that stuff. We have it loading for now. We will find a little file here, main controller, and we will put in a breakpoint there. Okay, we have that ready. So let's put in the breakpoint. Let's see if it works. Let's do test. Now mind you, some values were previously inserted into the database. Let's see. We have, I believe, the object, don't we? We have test, and 4,400. Okay, that's with sense. Let's see if that worked. It seems to have worked. Now let's show all. and that works perfectly again. So that's our value, our test, 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 test 4400, and then some other values that were previously inserted. So as you can see, it's all very easy to do, it's all very smooth, it all works perfectly, and you can save a lot of time, especially with those bindings and all that stuff. And plus you've learned a new feature, the form data, which will come in handy, especially if you need the files. If you need the files, form data is the place to go. And with that, we will conclude this lecture.